Hello everyone, my name is Jeanette Camping from Henry Stewart Events. I'd like to welcome you to our latest webinar, Looking Ahead 2023, DAM, Workflow and Future Innovation, sponsored by CI Hub. We've got a large global audience of DAM professionals registered today, and we'd like to thank you all for joining. There will be time during the webinar for Q&A, so please send in any questions that you have. And we're recording today's session, and you'll all be sent a link to view again later. Now it's my great pleasure to hand over to Andreas Michalski to start. Thank you, Andreas, and over to you.
Thanks a lot, Jeanette. It's really amazing to have you all here, and it's really looking ahead with all of you together to the next year. It's amazing to have a really interesting crowd of people here, very diverse, from all angles that we could find. To give you a good look inside ahead to 2023. So I'm really proud to have you here, and I would like to do a very short introduction and then give all of you a bit time to tell a little bit about you to the audience and about your company and about your topics. So first of all, we have Kevin Davis here from Shutterstock. It's really amazing that you took the time. I know right before Christmas, it's always tough to get everybody together. So really great to have you. Marc Milstein, I know you're the rainmaker, in the DAM world. So it's really amazing to have you here. Wonderful. Anna, it's really amazing to have you here. We met together at the Adobe Max, and it was such an amazing experience. And I think you have wonderful things to share. And last but not least, Mike Konik. It's wonderful to have you here from an agency perspective. Looking ahead to 2023, I'm pretty sure there is a lot of things you can share with all of us. And it would be amazing if you take some time and introduce you to the audience yourself. That would be wonderful.
Great, thank you. I'm Marc Konik. I'm the VP of Technology for PureRED, and we're a marketing services company as well as a traditional ad agency. And we service numerous Fortune 50 accounts as well as a multitude of other retailers and businesses in North America.
Great. I'm sorry, I didn't give a special order. Maybe Marc Milstein, maybe you might like to be the next, and then Anna.
Sure.
And then
well, I'm the other Marc. I'm Marc Milstein. I am the co-founder and rainmaker at vAIsual. vAIsual is a technology platform that pioneers clean generative AI. And solutions to generate what we hope is a great synthetic future.
Hi, everybody. My name is Otto Antigua. I head up our global technology partnership practice at Aprimo, the world's leading content operations platform. At Aprimo, we're focused on, on one hand, helping all of our clients create the most incredible, innovative brand experiences, but also helping change the way that teams work, create, collaborate, and ultimately learn together. Prior to coming to Aprimo, I worked at Gartner on some of the larger digital transformation projects. And honestly, that's pretty similar to what I do today. I constantly come in and help advise our clients on how they're best utilizing their content across their entire organization and across their ecosystem. I also work really closely with our technology partners in terms of innovating new and combined value that we can take to market together.
Wow.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm not gonna be able to beat that intro, Anna, other than to say that I am actually a technology partner via Shutterstock with Aprimo, obviously CI Hub, and a multitude of other workflow environments. I've been with Shutterstock for almost 3 years at this point, and my day-to-day is running the enterprise workflow, innovation, and integrations team, provide somewhat of a white glove service to our enterprise customer base, similar to what Anna describes. We basically consult on a day-to-day basis with our largest customers, our most interesting customers, those that have expressed an interest in innovation, and try to introduce automation, efficiency, or enhancements via our wide range of technical capabilities, and just try to deliver solutions that work across an enterprise base of roughly 10,000 or so enterprise customers, so very large swath of representation in the marketplace.
Wow, this is cool. To the audience out there, we have prepared 2 polls. We want to do it a little bit interactive before you all jump off to watch the soccer games which are on tonight. We didn't know that we have to compete with them today. So we have prepared 2 polls, and I would like to shoot one of them now, and it's about how do you all think that automation is important for all of you? And maybe you have a chance to just click on one of these 4 answers. That would be amazing. And I do think that just takes a couple of seconds.
Just know that if any of you click the don't care, you'll be breaking some of our hearts.
Right, Anna.
Okay, so it's as we have hoped. Nobody doesn't care. That's really great. We have 6% who say it's not really important and nice to have. And this is what we hope for. Between very important and quite important, it's 50, 60, 70, 80. It's almost 90%, 94%. So you do see it is something what will play a really major role in 2023. Let me just start with asking a question to you, Marc. We will spend a lot of time, Marc Konik, and I said that I will use all names that we don't get mixed up. We will talk a lot about the traditional things on how DEMS will be used. That will be a part of the discussion. But what will be interesting for you, Marc, is how would DEMS being used outside of the more traditional creative and marketing teams? So what kind of other purposes you see are relevant? Marc.
Oh, thank you. That's a great question, Andy. I think we've seen really kind of post-pandemic and even during the pandemic a major seismic shift almost in DAM usage. The work from home, the work anywhere type of paradigm has really kicked in, and we've seen mindsets quickly evolve away from traditional image archiving and more into how do we leverage the content to drive business opportunities and ROIs in essence. So there's really been a fundamental shift there. And it's not limited to just retiring things like shared directories, but rather more about integration and self-service for departments outside the creative and marketing spaces. You've got finance and sales and human resources. And these groups are both consumers as well as content creators, and their output needs to be managed and published in a similar fashion. People do lose sight of that, when they probably initially started out deploying their DAMs maybe years ago. So we're really seeing, once again, a very fundamental shift in how these, these DAM approaches are being adopted within organizations. As they really found themselves having to extend content and try and yield some benefits where it's become important for an organization as it grows. And it's easy when you have a handful of users, but it gets a lot more complicated as you start scaling up. And there we've seen a lot of vendors, Aprimo, Shutterstock, a lot of others that have really honed in on this shift, and they've made significant investments in being able to enable that content, sharing going forward. And I think that's one of the biggest, the biggest things coming. If you haven't experienced that already, I think, moving forward in 2023 and 2024, I think we'll see a lot of that.
That's quite a good point, Marc. That brings me to, we all know that content is still the king of things we're doing. Kevin, if content is still making, let's say it's the thing where everything turns around it. What is the greatest thing about content that everyone should think about?
There's that's a twist on the question, right? A twist on the question. I think from like a content creation perspective, literally every brand has their own strategy. Everyone's looking to the future. At the same time, there are some strong market forces, very large players that also dictate content should be produced and what content moves the needle on marketing or ad campaigns. And so I do feel like a lot of the corporate brands, especially the agencies themselves, media companies, are often reacting to what some of the bigger entities dictate as like, this is what you need to do. So obviously static images, stills, photography is always going to be kind of the cornerstone and the foundation of all things visual. Facebook a few years ago kind of introduced that, the concept of video. Like everyone has to start, performing and introducing video, which then bled into Instagram and some of the other areas. And now you start to talk to some of the largest brands in the world that are realizing I need a metaverse strategy. I need to address the omniverse. Like, where do I even begin? Do I have access to 3D content? If I had access to 3D content, where do I store that? What's XR? What's AR? What's VR? How do I play in that space? I feel like that really the next big thing on the horizon. And then, Marc with the K, Marc with the K, he introduced like synthetic and generative, right? And that's the big thing right now that everybody's talking about. So many different ways to introduce generative content, whether it's text or poetry, imagery, etc. There's an entire world evolving there. I think in the near term, what people are going to be focusing on is definitely 3D and then augmented reality, virtual reality, XR. My take.
Yeah, I think to piggyback off of that too a little bit, Kevin and Andy, I'm so happy that you have your little paid sponsor puppy appearing in the background. To piggyback off of what Kevin just mentioned, I love that you made mention of all the different rich file types that people are starting to take so much more advantage of. And I think we've been hearing this theme of content is king for quite some time, but almost taking it a step further and saying connected content is king, right? Because I think at the end of the day, DAM has always been great at managing content, but the most forward-thinking companies are always taking it that step further and thinking about how to manage the complex relationships between all of those different rich content types that Kevin made mention of, in order to truly weave a connected conversation with their clients.
Yeah, totally agree with that.
Okay, and how do you think that DAM unlocks that potential? Is that something what needs to be in DAM, or where can it help?
Like unlock the potential for better. Are we talking about better employee experiences or?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, great.
Sorry.
So, and the role that DAM might play for building better employee experiences, I think that kind of can be boiled down into two different themes. So to break it down, on one end, and I think this is oftentimes overlooked, it's about what is DAM's role and how you communicate with your employees. DAM can actually serve a really fundamental role as an intranet. I know we use that internally here at Aprimo. So whenever you have your CEO speaking and wanting to send out a message to your employees, if your marketing team wants to keep the rest of the organization aware of what campaigns are about to hit, and perhaps hand over material for your BDRs to be taking advantage of on LinkedIn posts, or for your salespeople to take that kind of content and repurpose it in their outreach. HR sending out blasts around, hey, if you guys are taking off time for Christmas, here's what the proper protocol for that. All of that can be fed within DAM as well, just in order to keep your internal employees to understand what's going on at the company. And I think that's an interesting use case that people don't always think about. The second one is really what we're all more keen and aware of, which is having that one easy place to find, create, use content, and extend that into whatever applications your end users are using on the everyday. That's why what Andy and team at CI Hub have created is really so phenomenal, is because it, and Andy, I'm brown nosing you a little bit right now, but it's because it's allowing your creatives to stay in the application suite that they know and love, but have the full power of DAM behind it. I think another role that I've been seeing increasingly with our clients that's really interesting and I'm quite excited about is taking more of a role of intelligent and prescriptive content recommendations per different user roles. So for instance, one of my clients most recently has been creating this idea of, if you're going through a content, an evergreen content refresh process, how are you best doing that? If it's hitting a certain time for an expiration date, automatically routing that through and having, you know, different variant content pieces that might play a role in that content refresh, that's always really helpful as well. So focusing in on that end user experience ultimately just allows with greater recruitment and retainment process for your employees, because you're giving them the tool set they need to really shine.
Okay, so this is then part of a digital transformation process. So Marc with a C, how do you see that? Yeah, if visual content is part of digital transformation of governments, how would you see the impact there?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's obviously there's a lot of facets to that. I mean, I really like to talk more about digital enablement, you know, as part of that transformation journey, because I think that's really the key, is to empower the use of these visual assets within an organization. And not only do we need standards there, but you know, we need to be able to leverage that content to have better automation. It's going to require these standards and the ability to go ahead and maintain the brand perception, the messaging, the presentation, and so forth. And the only way to achieve this really is to have that good governance, and that is to go ahead and drive the best asset representation for the desired messaging, whether that's internal or external. I think is somewhat you know, immaterial, because I think you still want to make sure that you're getting the right you know, the right content out. And in order to introduce automation, it becomes really important to be able to apply tags and data classifications. And this helps drive that back-end business logic to be able to search, select, and route these assets appropriately. Because you know, I think anybody on this call, you know, these are really the desired, you know, outcomes. Is how do we go ahead and make that possible? And the only way to do that is with some of these, you know, efforts. We need to be looking at ranking, you know, preferences for content. You know, you may have similar assets, but you may only want to really visualize one of those, you know, whether it's internal or external. And we found that classification is equally as important, you know, in this you know, in this exercise. You know, we found that you know, a lot of you know, content may not be, you know, desirable to share with a broader audience. We've run into scenarios where you know, clients have content that has been for maybe training or workplace accidents, you know, training material. And you don't necessarily want that to get out in some way. So that's why this classification and tagging, not only does it help drive that digital transformation and automation process, but it needs to be very seriously factored into the, you know, into the curation process. And we feel that you know, if attention is paid toward that, and a lot of vendors, Aprimo and Shutterstock, have done a really great job, at least in my opinion, in being able to go ahead and build on that foundation. You know, the roles, the permissions, the classifications, you know, are all available to help drive that. You know, whether it's through APIs, you know, or through more traditional methods where, you know, where you're maybe interacting with, you know, through CI Hub, for example, where it's going to leverage those tags and filters, you know, to be able to go ahead and present the right content.
So that would bring me to the point that when we talk about classification, and we know that theme, that there is auto classification and there is AI and there is, you know, lots of things that would support the user in creating all of that stuff what you need. And it's obviously extremely important to have a good classification and to maintain that. But it's, you know, it's just work nobody really wants to do. We're talking since years about the hope that, you know, you upload a picture and an invisible backend AI system, yeah, tells you everything about that picture. We at CI Hub, we're just experimenting and just releasing a version that you can generate your images with AI based on these DALI and other AI engines. Marc with a K, what do you see happens in that area? Will that automation now really come to life as we all hope since years, or is it still a very, very early beginning of all of that stuff? Yeah, Marc.
Wow, very good questions, and something to really, really ponder. I think that DAM's future started yesterday, and that the future looks very, very bright. I mean, I think that dynamic content will re-engineer, restructure the entirety of the content world. I mean, right now the entire internet is based upon the search for and the retrieving of static content. Servers, Google, everything is about static content. But generative AI pertains and brings us a world that is wholly generative, wholly dynamic, I should say. And that means that content is created instantly for that particular query, based upon that query, and that it is exclusively to that person who's ever made that query. And that DAM's future is of not just as a repository for static content, but as a content generation point. Right now, all DAM users need to leave the campus, so to speak, leave their respective DAM environments in order to source content and then bring that back within the DAM. There's nothing that prevents DAM from having a search bar on the a search bar, or a search box, I should say, on the toolbar, where users type in a query and say, give me a happy family on a beach, and it generates it. That's what I call the ideal future. However, there are many, many barriers in the way, and those barriers are primarily legal. And if I'm allowed to speak about that, I certainly will. Otherwise, I'll turn
please. This is, I think this is an important thing. The first question I got here is, if everything is generated on demand, so instead of searching something, you type the search phrase, but it just generates what you're searching. So
right.
Do I need the DAM anymore? Because it's never there, to be honest. Yeah. But I think, and we discussed that here in that round in the last couple of days. It's a huge legal thing what now comes. Yeah. Because if I have an asset, I know on that asset, Anna is on that asset, and if I want to use it, I have to ask her, which is quite easy, even if it's a process. If there is an image which was not there 2 minutes ago, which is generated based on whatever, what's the legal implication from that, Marc?
Oh, dramatic. So let's talk about the basics here. Every single platform, every single AI platform, generative AI platform, whether it's DALL-E, generative AI, stable AI, Midjourney, you name it. I'm sorry, Midjourney, Crayon, any one of the more popular generative AI platforms are legally toxic. They are literally radioactive waste dumps, all waiting for some attorney to show up and grind them all into subatomic particles. And any company, any commercial usage of any of that generated content will probably net you, at minimum, a cease and desist letter, but at worst, perhaps a day in a courtroom. Any company which makes use of any of that content and thinks that they're going to exploit it for commercial purposes is playing Russian roulette. And it's going to become even more explicit in the coming months and years. Think of Napster. If we go back to 1999, June of 1999, Napster appears, and by 2002, about the middle of 2002, it disappeared. But what came in its place was something that's even better. What came in its place was Steve Jobs announcing the arrival of something called an iPod. But in order to then populate that iPod, that piece of hardware, he gave us iTunes, which was an environment where we could license content. Generative AI right now suffers from a single problem, and that is that it is all generative AI comes out of scraped or stolen data. Every single piece of generative content that you've ever dealt with in the last couple of months, since mid-May, when DALL-E opened their doors to the public, comes from scraped data, meaning that that means that the engineers, the data scientists who created this amazing tools, scraped the internet, used repositories of data like the Lion data set, which comes out of the Ludwig Maximilian University in Munich, a research project, and none of the copyright holders were ever paid for that content. And therefore, basically, anybody who generates a piece of content is exploiting that. And that, of course, leads to all the aforementioned bad things which are coming down the road shortly. And so there are a number of clean AI, ethical AI movements underway. vAIsual, first of all, and I also want to mention that one of the things that has not been talked about, and I'll briefly go into that, is the not necessarily the danger that is posed by copyright, but the danger that's posed by replicating human images. It's personal identity information, PII, biometric information. While copyright can be sort of bent and perhaps not strictly enforced, biometric information, the misuse of biometric information will have much sharper teeth attached to it. And so the courts, when they go after misuse for the aforementioned, will have much stronger means to enforce that. So GDPR in the European Union, biometric or PII laws in the state of Texas, as well as the state of Illinois, two of the most toothsome laws in North America, the province of Ontario in Canada, having very, very strong PII laws. And that will definitely put a damper on the likes of Midjourney, the likes of Stable AI, the likes of OpenAI.
But do you see that there are systems coming that will be usable for customers?
Yes.
Is that something?
Yes. So vAIsual, my company, has built the world's largest data set of biometric information. We have over 500,000 images, and it's growing leaps and bounds daily, of real people that we photographed in a studio, all of whom signed GDPR compliant biometric model releases and have agreed to have their image and their likeness mined specifically for the generation of synthetic content. They were paid for that session. That is the basic building blocks. In other words, these are the Lego blocks that it will. And we have now signed up with a number of stock agencies who have turned over the entirety of their libraries in return for a remuneration to the copyright holder, which then allows for the generation of ethical AI. And so, yes,
I think Kevin, Shutterstock is very active in that area also, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I was gonna say there's lots of parallels with Marc's company as well. Like we've kind of established our 3 pillars, right? So there's like responsible, ethical, and like frankly, the pillars like enjoyable, right? Like making sure that when we go down this path, that one, it's safe. You want to mitigate any kind of risk, and we've established our position in the marketplace, how we're pursuing this in partnership with OpenAI. But at this stage of the game, it's all so new that we're just trying to beta test, a couple of proof of concepts, try to feel out like what the best application is and how to do it safely. I mean, it's risky. It just is risky. There's you have to mitigate risk. And protect the brands that are generating and going to market with this. So we're still figuring out our approach, but we do know that as we kind of take our solutions to market, it's going to be in a responsible way.
Okay, but at the end, then we are actually discussing just a temporary problem. Yeah, everything what we see in the moment is better testing, finding out what's possible. Yeah. So in the speed of as it's happened, and in today we're talking about 2023, that would mean assuming that the legal issue will be solved, and as you said, Marc and Kevin, there will be ways to solve that. What is the impact to the DAM industry? And this is not just the only new trend this year. Yeah. What do you think is the impact on all of that to the DAM vendors, to the systems, and what does it mean for the users?
I think that DAM vendors. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, Marc. I was going to say, I think jumping in from that governance and legal perspective, I would say I've been seeing this theme crop up far more so in some of our regulated industries like life sciences and financial services clients. They're fascinated with this idea of this modular content concept. And when Marc is talking about, obviously if you're moving into generative AI, you're taking that from different pieces of content, correct? So what some of these more regulated industries are looking at is, what if we broke it down and atomized it so that we had specific content blocks that could then be created and generated into a new piece of content? Now that's where DAM's role of governance and the rules that Marc Konik went over, that's where that starts to play a lot more value. If you're taking this piece of content, it always has to go in conjunction with this disclaimer or this image. You can pull that kind of robust storyline into the content that's then created to help get around some of that legal and approval process. I think what we'll probably start to see a bit more as well is that DAMs that have stronger support for work in progress assets that are supporting and talking towards modular content stories, digital rights, workflow, et cetera, those are probably the DAMs that are best positioned to take advantage of what generative AI looks like in the future. So it'll be really interesting to see how that starts shaping out in 23 and beyond.
Yeah,
So
agreed. A repository is just not enough. Yeah, sorry, Andy, just to expand on that.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, no, I think, Anna, just to add to that, I think one of the things, and I'm curious, to hear maybe your thought from an Aprimo perspective, is, as you're looking at governance, do you feel that, there's going to be an effort to introduce almost like AI type governance rules, going forward, so you can go ahead and actually mitigate that risk, going forward? And I think that's even a question to Kevin as well.
That's interesting. Yeah.
I'll just jump in on the content like production side, as a source of this content. At this stage of the game, like we are just, in the even early beta, like when we have our user engagement, we just really caveat a lot, but then also make it very clear, like these are how you can, this is how these are the intended uses of this content, and this is how you cannot use it. And you literally have to click acknowledgement in order to even download, license, or comp the content that's being creative. And we just got to provide those guardrails and say, like, you are a corporate brand, you know that there's risk involved, you accept this risk, and it's your job to be as responsible as you can, because we've been as responsible as we can. So that's just on the content provider side.
And on the system side, Anna, couldn't we see that these AI functionalities is built into DAM systems, and then if I have my own content, modular content in my system, that AI can help me put that automatically together based on my rules, based on my regulations, all of that stuff? Wouldn't that be innovative?
Absolutely it is. And it's what a lot of our most innovative clients are starting to lean more into, because again, they have this problem where they're challenged with doing more with less. They have to be keeping up with this content deluge and content creation process, which is where what you're talking about, Andy, really comes into play. I think also, Marc, you had a question of can we train AI to potentially flag legal risks? Absolutely, yes. I think one of the larger financial services clients we're working with is putting together training mechanisms in place around this. They know that there's certain disclosures, and people don't think about this in the terms of rich text as well, right? They understand that there's certain disclosures and text that should be involved with the specific usage of these partial blocks of a piece of content. So if those aren't attached accordingly, you could use AI to train that and flag it in the system before it goes out.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And it's interesting that you keep referencing financial services, which are traditionally, right, like a more conservative, risk-averse way, right? And it seems that they're leaning in, or maybe even getting ahead of it, knowing that the desire is there. We're actually seeing the same thing on our side too. Some of the most unlikely verticals are the ones that are already dipping their toes into the space and really excited about it. But just again, how do they do it, in a way that's safe to take to market?
Yeah, because on one end, it really helps with the, sorry, Andy.
No, go ahead, please, come on.
I was gonna say, it helps with when you think about financial services, healthcare, life sciences, they have huge, robust legal and approval compliance workflows, right? So the idea is, if you can break it down into digestible blocks and already have those pieces approved, can that help accelerate the legal and approval process for down the road when those blocks are repurposed for different pieces of content. Now, in practice, like that sounds great in theory. I think in practice, a lot of times you still want it routed through for one last approval process to make sure that everything looks good before you push it out into market. But yeah, that's something that a lot of regulated industries are starting to lean into.
And do you think that, and it's easy to talk about the regulated industries because at the end, content compliance is their, is one of their most core processes, and this is where they spend as much money as they have to. But do you think we will see all of that for other industries that maybe, finance and the regulated industry, they use it as this is a core thing. We have to have it. Yeah, it significantly reduces our effort because we have that workflow, that AI-based workflow in place. That's amazing. But do you think we see that in other industries where it's more a comfort point or a convenience point instead of a must? And this would be, I assume whatever, most DAM vendors have maybe 10% of their customers in the regulated or the finance industry. So how do we bring that innovation to 90% of the users of a DAM system? Is that something what will happen where we see things next year? What do you all think?
Well, I think it certainly spans far more outside of just those two verticals. I mean, at the end of the day, if you're looking at what's the core purpose of generative AI, et cetera, it's really about improved efficiencies, right? So whatever user group that might be that's interacting and wanting to create that content, it's all about, can I create this content faster? Is it still meaningful? And then can I deliver it in an intentional manner? So I think it will absolutely see like far more encompassed usage of it.
Yeah, I was going to say too, I think there's like one use case that we haven't heard yet. And again, I'm not sure how many creatives we have in the audience, but in the industry, those that are in marketing, those that are going, taking marketing campaigns, ad campaigns to market, like one of the challenges they have is like a cold start problem, meaning like they need the inspiration. And so that's one of the things that, is pretty interesting. Technology emerges is leveraging it for inspiration, right? It's maybe not generating the asset they're going to use, but helps them iterate and think through and better understand the other assets that are like that might be able to perform. So that's kind of a segue into other AI capabilities and just understanding the content, what's going to perform, like which assets in your 100,000 asset archive you should actually activate, that are just sitting there dormant. But that's one of the things that's really interesting that we're seeing too, is just like like leveraging that as an inspiration tool versus a production tool. So I wanted to float that out there from our perspective too.
That's really cool. One other thing I would like to go a little bit more into it for next year, because this is also something what we as CI Hub experienced this year, is the high demand of integrated workflows on support of organizations with a workflow that delivers the task right where they need it, or anyhow have a workflow system that organizes tasks as part of my selection process of an asset, regardless if it's an inspirational asset and I really like that, or if it's an asset that I really need. So how do you see the involvement of workflow automation and the efficiency on that one? Whoever wants to jump in there, Anna, Kevin.
Yeah, I'll volunteer. I think that's a good question, and that's one of the questions I wanted to tackle when I joined Shutterstock approaching 3 years ago. Like my mission coming in, or at least what I was hired to do, was really think through enterprise customers, the tools that they're using, their marketing tech stack, ways to automate and reduce friction, primarily to help them, purchase more content, right? Like ultimately it ends up boiling down to, you free up capacity to tackle more creative projects, you're going to buy more content. So why not make Shutterstock as accessible, as possible? Great. So how do we keep them from having to leave their tools and go over to this website, find something, download and upload? And it's interesting, timing wise, like that's when the pandemic hit also. So you added a little bit of complexity, and now everyone's working from home or working from anywhere. And if you're looking for efficiencies, like this is a really good way to do it, is to introduce integrations, introduce automation. And so we actually went to market and surveyed our user base, and I mentioned before, is like 10,000 enterprise customers. We actually had phenomenal response. We got responses from like 1,000 back on our survey, just trying to understand the tools that they're engaging with, understand their workflow, and then introducing automation and the integrations. And we heard back from it's like 300 of our enterprise customers that had already taken advantage of our integration. So while it's not that, the ideal like 1,000 respondents, so you could say this is statistically significant, we did have several hundred that responded, which is great. We just said, like, we're trying to understand,
Absolutely.
like, how many like hours a week would you think that you are going to benefit from an integration like this? And across, the board, you average everything out, and they ended up coming back with 3.5 hours a week per creative team. And so it's pretty nice to say, like, you can actually quantify and say, like, okay, if you look at a 50 work week year, times the 3.5 hours, it's the equivalent of introducing a free month of capacity. And so every marketing team on the planet has a backlog. And so if you can help them find a 13th month in a year to pursue more projects, what a win would that be, right? So that's
amazing.
The approach that we took and the discovery that we made along the way. Not sure if anyone else has tried to quantify it. It was an interesting exercise.
We have a prepared poll for that one. Yeah, if maybe the audience, we have a question. Would be really interesting to see, and all of you have answered that automation and is an important thing. If you have automation in your team, what is your average saving, what you experience from using automation within your team? Maybe you can share your points there. That would be amazing. And then actually, Marc with a C, I would love to get into a little bit on, you're in an agency, so this is your daily business. What is your experience on automation, and how does it help your company, and what do you expect from next year to improve?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. There's so many facets to that, Andy. But really a good good lead into that. Automation is huge for for an organization like ours. I mean, we're producing upwards of 10,000 plus pages, unique pages per week. For retail advertising. And so for us, this is pretty significant. We've got several dedicated teams within our organization that's predominantly their sole responsibility is to look for tool sets, for mechanisms, as well as software products that are rich in APIs and SDKs and things that will enable the automation functionality. It's not just a matter of scripting anymore just to get content onto a page. It's really about the entire life cycle of the asset. So once it gets placed in social media, once it gets placed into a printed page, for example, where does it go from there? It's probably going to go ahead and be some thematic choice from a retail perspective to continue that messaging, some type of brand building or promotional messaging. So what we're focused on is how do we move that data, along a workflow, where you can minimize the subjective, the manual intervention, that's necessary. And I think those are some of the big strides, that we've started to leverage, even workflow tools that you probably wouldn't apply to imaging that have traditionally been utilized in more of the continuous integration, continuous development for software. Is ironically some of the tools that we're actually leveraging for customers and helping them leverage those types of workflows in their environments, to get to market faster, with their messaging and things of that. And we can talk about how CI Hub plays a role. I think I'll save that for a little bit, but that's definitely something that that we're really looking forward to. I don't know if you want me to touch on that in this, in this
Yeah,
context.
it's if you talk about CI, it's even better than if I talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think just one second, Mark. We just got the poll in here, and I think it's okay to say that the average saving of the audience through automation is something between 3 and 4 hours. We have almost 50% saving time between 1 and 3 and 4 and 8 hours. So I would say maybe the average would be between 3 and 4. So this is relevant, yeah. As you said, Kevin, yeah, this is really a relevant amount of work what teams can save, and I'm pretty sure we will see more integrations and more efficiency here, because we're just at the beginning on how we can put all of that together. Thanks for the poll. Thank you. Yeah, it's great to
I think
see
also to the 15% that said that they're saving 10 hours plus, please come talk to me afterwards. I want to know your secret sauce.
Yeah, these are the leader
exactly.
of the pack. We will try to catch them. Yeah, that's really good to learn.
I would almost
Marc,
say automation. Yeah, just automation on our side. We strive for 1 to 3 hours per user. Per week. So that's that's more typical for us, but that's because we're just so heavily heavily reliant on being able to do that and leverage that type of functionality. But places where we've really been able to go ahead and extend CI Hub, and it in and of itself is a very unique product, and in the sense that it has so many connection points. The concept of being able to go ahead and connect to disparate systems with a common tool is something that's very unique in the industry. This has really been a very much proprietary type approach by a lot of vendors. And that's because nobody's really stepped up to the plate to try and do what CI Hub has done to empower the damn user base, frankly, globally, in my opinion, because there's so many damn products out there. I mean, I think Andy and I were talking about this at the Max conference not long ago, about literally the scope of how many damn products there are. And I think Andy's got a list of something like almost 300, if I recall correctly. And
328.
328, right. I mean, people don't even realize that, because there's just so many that are so industry specific. And you really don't appreciate that number until you find yourself in a situation where you're having to go ahead and bring users together, teams together that have to draw content from these various systems. And in large organizations, it's not uncommon to have 2, 3, maybe even 4 DAM solutions deployed for different reasons. And I mean, it's just people just don't always realize that, but it's something we run into quite often.
Oh yeah, and we as CI Hub see that. We have done an analyze with the existing customers, and you may know we have more than 1,000 corporate customers using CI Hub now. The average amount of data sources you typically need to fulfill your work is 3.7. So every organization has 3.7 different sources where they get their assets from. That might be an Aprimo system, that might be a Shutterstock system, that might be a Dropbox to share something, and then occasionally something else. Yeah, and this is totally the typical situation we see out there. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, totally agree. And just to expand on that just a little bit, Andy, because as both a user, we've had customizations done, to CI Hub that are very particular to some of our workflows. But one of the things that I think is it should be very attractive, especially to the audience, is that this is a tool that will allow us to help optimize a user's experience in this environment, these multiple touch points, where we can actually go ahead and somebody's going to be utilizing something like Box, somebody's going to be using somebody like Shutterstock or Aprimo, these other types of tools used by various different business units, within an organization. And there we're able to go ahead and deploy CI Hub and bridge those separate groups with a kind of a unifying tool, if you will, where we're able to go ahead and extend something not just in Creative Cloud, meaning the Adobe application suite, but now the Office suite. Being able to go ahead and say, hey, now that pardon the term, but what we call the blast radius, and that's how far a dam can extend within an organization once it's deployed. And this is literally what goes ahead and gives us something at scale. Not only do we stop with creatives, but now we're extending that capability out to the productivity apps like Office and even PowerPoint for that matter.
This is
so very huge.
This is a huge thing, and we especially see also with Figma and Sketch, especially after Adobe bought the Figma stuff.
Absolutely.
This is huge. I have to be a little bit rude, to be sorry. We just have 9 minutes left, and I would love to extend that because I would have a gazillion of more questions and ideas here, and maybe we can set up another round beginning of next year. Is there something before we go? I have a couple of questions to the audience, but is there? Let us jump into the question if that's okay, and then we do a wrap up, and maybe everybody has some idea which is important for the next year, except staying healthy. And there's one question, and I think Marc with a K, this is more for you. Does the panel think that AI generated content should have some kind of metadata with it? And I think we've talked about that stuff. This is one very important thing, because at the end, even if it's generated, it will be used somewhere and will become consistent or stored. Who does the metadata to it?
So I can tell you, I am a member of IPTC. I sit on the video metadata committee, and I am regularly a member attending the photo metadata committee. And so you should know that. Well, look, instead of being that metadata. Let me get this right. Metadata is the DNA code of the asset. It is based upon metadata. We do text search to create. We do text prompt, I should say, to create the asset, and that prompt is the asset. So you once generated, you can then place it into a DAM and then apply additional metadata. IPTC has already made adjustments to both the core photo metadata standard as well as to the video metadata standard to encompass or to allow for the application of metadata which is specific to generative AI content. And so yes, that's the answer is in short, yes.
I think to build off of that too, Marc, I mean, when you call it the DNA of your content experience, right, that should be the foundation. I mean, it is the foundation for everything, because all of that data that's wrapping around your content ends up making it so much more smarter. And it's what drives automation and personalization, improves your SEO across your sites and mobile experiences, helps you measure end engagement with that content. I mean, it's everything to tie it together. So it's also critical to controlling all the digital rights of who can see it, interact with it, what geographies it's pushed out to, et cetera. So absolutely incredibly important.
Thank you, Anna. There are no more questions. I think everybody's already opening his beer to join the soccer. What is it? Halftime? I forgot that. Any short advice what nobody should miss in 2023? And then would someone like to start?
Sure, I'll jump in.
Some nice advice, Anna. Come on. Where should we travel in the world?
Oh, I'm right now in Colombia, so if anybody wants to head down here, I'm going on a backpacking trip to Patagonia if you want to join. So big trends that we're seeing in 23. I think, I know I'm just going to drop that in there, Marc. Two things that I think, one, obviously everybody's talking about it. It's the talent challenge, right? Challenge is kind of upon all of us to make sure that the systems that we're putting in place for our employees have to be smarter, more efficient. This is wrapping up everything we talked around workflow automation, things like generative AI, leveraging the rules and automation to reduce error, using AI to replace manual and rote work and tasks. So again, just creating that environment that allows your employees to truly shine. That's a big trend that we're seeing in 23. And then another one that I thought was pretty interesting that not as many people are touching on. One of the things Forbes talked about was this increased concern around supply chain security. And this is something that's coming up really frequently with my clients, especially like in the CPG space. And it's what we can think about from that perspective is if your physical supply chain is already so like facing so many challenges in 23, you simply cannot afford to lose any cycle time when it comes to the digital components of a campaign, of your content experiences, etc. So being able to ensure that you get content out into market as quickly and efficiently as possible to address those concerns will be incredibly important and a big focus for many companies in 23.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that, Anna. A lot of supply chain issues, obviously in the retail space. We've seen this time and time again. You know, being able to go ahead and curate, you know, as much as possible. AI, I think, is going to start playing a huge role. Machine learning, AI, you know, components will start playing a huge role in this space. I feel very, very, you know, soon. I think there's a lot of vendor interest, you know, in the damn vendor space to help drive this type of thing. Maybe it'll be extended, you know, through some type of plugins or some other, you know, SaaS type service to augment that. But this is going to be almost critical, I think, going forward for a lot of retail establishments. So I know that's certainly one place we'll definitely see that start appearing sooner rather than later.
Cool. Kevin.
Yeah, I always default back to the creative process. I think one of the things that we're leaning into for 2023, and you'll see more tools and capabilities come to market, but you know, kind of more efficiency on the inspiration and the creation side, like the actual like surfacing of raw assets that we can tell you based on AI how they're going to perform. We can actually predict compared to some of your past creatives what's going to do better. I mean, the goal is to reduce the rounds of A/B testing, the expense of A/B testing. You'll never get rid of it, but if you could take it down to 1 or 2 rounds versus, you know, 100 rounds across 5,000 assets, like that's a big win for the customer. So that's one of the things that we're leaning into is kind of that secret sauce that you mentioned way earlier, Andy, is like, what can you do behind the curtain to actually like streamline and help our creatives create with a little more confidence. So that's kind of our direction.
Yeah. Cool. Marc.
Well, I think that 2023 will probably be the first year that DAM finally comes into its own. Waiting for the first DAM vendor to step forward and take on the role as a pioneer in offering generative AI to their clients via an API, via some sort of integration with an ethical, clean AI provider, and taking, as I said, taking DAM to its rightful place, which is not just as a content storage hub, a share hub, a place to monetize your content, but also a place to generate your content. And so looking forward to seeing that happen. Anybody wants to reach out, I am here. Looking forward to hearing from any one of you.
That's great. The good thing on that round for me as the part of CI Hub, I've made a couple of notices what we have put onto our roadmap for next year. It will be full of things you've mentioned that does make a lot of sense to build in a plugin, which makes it a lot easier to deploy to every DAM system. It was amazing to have you. Thanks a lot for your insights, for your thoughts. Thanks for spending that time just before Christmas. It's really amazing. I love to have you here. Yeah, and maybe we have a big event next year in Berlin, and maybe we see each other and do that round live together. That would be really fantastic. For my point, say thank you to everybody. It's a pleasure. Also, not just to my colleagues here, but also who have joined us, who have spent the last hour with us. It was really, really cool. I love it to have a little bit of different approach, not just telling about our product, but yeah, get our partners involved and get a little bit of insights into the industry. It's amazing. Thanks to all of you. We're on the minute. Everybody can now switch over to the soccer game. And we just all say thank you, wherever you are in the world.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
Anna,
everyone.
enjoy your trip. Thank you.
Thanks, Andy.
Bye-bye. It was a
Great day.
pleasure. Thanks to all of
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.